Welcome back into the 143. This is Under Review. I'm Joseph Pinn. That's Nick Jarvis. We're coming at you live with episode 76.
That's right. 7-6. We have made it, inching ever closer to the 100 mark. It's pretty crazy. 76 consecutive weeks, 76 consecutive episodes.
Can you imagine there's that much to
Ridiculous.
talk about in sports? That's just crazy.
That
Fun
is.
stuff every week. It's especially difficult in the off season to always find topics, but hey, we find the stuff that's hot, the stuff that's trending, and we bring it to y'all front and center. That's how we do it here at Under Review. I'm going to kick us off with our stat of the week, brought to you by Andrews Logistics, our wonderful sponsor. This is your stat. It's an interesting stat. So HBO runs a show every year called Hard Knocks, where they take one team and they focus on them in the preseason, getting ready. It's kind of a team that wasn't very good the year before, but has potential to be better the next year. Okay. And so lately, this is why nobody wants to be on Hard Knocks. Here's the stat. Okay. They've done 10 seasons now of Hard Knocks, preseason Hard Knocks. They have a in the middle of the season show, but that doesn't really count as Hard Knocks. We're going preseason Hard Knocks, the teams that get selected. 7 of the 10 teams did not make playoffs. So
some bad juju there.
Coaches and GMs do not want to get picked for Hard Knocks because you don't want cameras in your meetings. You don't want that kind of publicity out there. You would like the preseason stuff to be kept in-house, where there's less pressure. People are different around cameras. You just want the team to be completely authentic. So guess who got picked to be on Hard Knocks this year?
The Cowboys.
The Jets. No, we already were on Hard Knocks. The Jets with Aaron Rodgers. So I think that was an interesting pick. It's an interesting stat. So there's going to be a lot of pressure. Well, there already is a lot of pressure, but with Hard Knocks, there's a lot more pressure on Aaron and the Jets to succeed this season. They've apparently got a very tough 6 games, with the Cowboys being game 2 starting out. So, yeah, 70% of the teams that have been on Hard Knocks do not make the playoffs. Not a great stat. Not looking great for the Jets, but we'll see how they respond.
Bad luck charm there, but I love it because that means that, the football spirits are against Aaron Rodgers, and, we're all for that here on Under Review.
Mm-hmm.
Your player of the week is Ezekiel Duran. The ripe old age of 24. He's hitting a nice crisp 319 right now.
He's tearing it up.
10 home runs, 31 RBIs. He hit his 10th home run tonight, Tuesday night, in Game 2 against the Tigers in the bottom of the 8th to give the Rangers the lead and then ultimately the win. Unfortunately, we kind of struggled against the Tigers this series. Dropped Game 1 in a whopping upset. And then Game 2, we were playing from behind pretty much the whole time until about the 8th inning. Chugged ahead, and that was the game. So your player of the week, Ezekiel Duran.
Congrats, Zeke. And let's get started. So,
first off,
not as much stuff going on.
Absolutely not as much stuff. So we kind of got to scrutinize every little thing. That being said, there is some beef right now.
There's always that off-season beef.
And the Bengals. So, Joseph, why don't you just take it away?
Yeah, so to start it at the very beginning, Joe Burrow a few weeks ago was asked in a press conference who the best QB in the NFL right now is, and Joe Burrow, being the humble guy that he is and being right here, said right now you got to say Pat Mahomes. He's the best, and I don't think there's very many people that would say any differently. Being a Chiefs fan or not being a Chiefs fan, you kind of have to give it up for Pat Mahomes doing what he did with absolutely nothing last season. So Joe Burrow came out and said that, and so Jamar Chase was asked about, that's his receiver, was asked about his comments, and in response, Jamar Chase said, Pat who? And so then the Kansas City Chiefs had their ring ceremony from winning the Super Bowl last season, and Pat posted a picture of him with 2 Super Bowl rings and tweeted, that's who, back at Jamar Chase. Travis Kelce was asked about it, and he said, don't you ever disrespect Pat Mahomes. If you're going to talk your stuff, but you better be able to back it up. So we got a little bit of Cincinnati and Kansas City beef going on here before the AFC Championship game this year. Cincinnati and Burrow was 3-0 over Mahomes in Kansas City. Now it's 3-1. So people like to make a rivalry of that. We're going to talk about it. Nick, is it a rivalry right now? Bengals
I do
Chiefs?
think it is a rivalry. We alluded to it in an earlier episode whenever we were talking about Colin Cowherd was making his picks, and then he was saying how he thought the Jags were going to win the AFC this year. And I remember we talked about how it's going to be Chiefs versus Bengals, I think, for the next few years for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I mean, we've already seen some great playoff matchups, like the one last year and even the one the year before that was extremely exciting. Even when they meet in the regular season, it's extremely fun to watch because both quarterbacks are extremely talented and have extremely talented teams. And so it gets into kind of a shootout, and it always seems to come down to the final minutes of every single game,
Right, right.
who's going to be the quarterback to get the game winning drive. And this last year, like Joseph said, Patrick Mahomes got Joe Burrow. But then the other thing with that was they finished the job, right? They won the Super Bowl and got that ring.
Yeah, there's a lot of talk about Jalen Hurts being like one of the great quarterbacks in the league. The two best quarterbacks in the league right now are definitely Pat Mahomes and Joe Burrow. And the stats show that. We read the stats off last year. We've talked about this many times. A lot of times in the AFC, we have seen, I'm not really going to get into the NFC, but like the AFC, we've seen the two best quarterbacks in the AFC. Normally, that's a rivalry that lasts for a while. Obviously, the most recent one that I can think of would be Tom Brady, Peyton Manning. Those two are always going at it. They're not in the same division, but they are going at it. I mean, for over a decade. And I think right now that's what we have with Pat Mahomes and Joe Burrow. Just because of that, the teams are rivals, and we've seen them meet in the AFC Championship now twice, with the Bengals winning the first one, the Chiefs winning the next one. And so I think there's the potential to see that. I mean, I think we'll see a matchup in the playoffs quite a bit, like you're saying. They face each other this year in December, kind of when the stakes are higher, when the games matter a little bit more. So that'll be an exciting regular season game to watch. But I think it's a rivalry because they have the two best quarterbacks in the league. And I mean, you got to respect Jamar Chase sticking up for his QB. I think he might not have taken the great. He really made the Chiefs mad, and that probably was not the smartest thing in the world because, like last he could have said that if they won the AFC Championship game, but the thing is they lost. So the Chiefs already kind of got back at him. So I don't know what he's trying to do here, but I mean, I like Travis Kelce backing his boy up. I like Jamar Chase backing Joe Burrow up. I think it makes things pretty intense. Gives us a little bit of offseason drama to work with. Keeps it exciting.
They're just building up tension, to this game in December. And I like seeing each guy stick up for their quarterback because I think, to be successful, you have to believe in the quarterback because, he is
Yeah,
the guy, right? He touches the ball every single play on the field. He's making all the decisions, or I would say he's making the biggest decisions
yeah.
on the field. So as Jamar Chase, you kind of want to believe that you have the best quarterback. And I would say they have the second best, but also it's the same, but on the flip side for Travis Kelce, right? He believes that they have the best quarterback. And obviously, I'm inclined to agree with Travis Kelce on this one. I do
As our
think that
most.
Patrick Mahomes is the better QB. Obviously, he has the rings um, to back that up. But I like seeing both guys kind of come to the defense of their quarterback and kind of, just go at each other a little bit.
Yeah, I think it's fun. I think it's good for just give us a show kind of in the off season. I'm not sure there's any other sport that really has as much off season drama as the NFL. I mean, it is like one of the most watched sport in America for sure. I think it's really cool to see kind of this going back and forth, but Jamar Chase, you got to know Jamar Chase has been with Burrow since college. I mean, that's his guy. He's going to stick with his guy. I mean, you would expect nothing less. So it'll be really exciting when these two teams meet. I mean, even without this, it would have been great, but makes it a little bit more intense now. I doubt this is when it'll like this is the end of it. Like I'm sure they'll have some more words and stuff this offseason for each other. So I'm here for all of it. I know people keep trying to throw the Bills in there, but I think the Bills they got a lot of stuff to figure out. Stephon Diggs is trying to turn into one of those Devo receivers right now, kind of like an Antonio Brown, Des Bryant type thing. And we've talked about it. The Bills got some drama to figure out. So until they're good as a team, they're not going to be in this conversation.
And also, Josh Allen has not proven to be clutch. We've seen it
Right.
time and time again last year. Um, I think of all the quarterbacks, he might be in, I would say he's probably in the second best offensive situation. I think, I'm gonna say I think he's in the best offensive situation in regards to O line and
Mm-hmm.
weapons. I
Yeah,
think
I agree with
Burrow,
you.
I'm sorry, I think Allen out of Burrow and Mahomes has the best offensive situation, but yet he is the worst of those three, right? We've seen games come down to the wire last year and he hasn't clutched up.
Nope.
Whenever it comes down to it in the playoffs, right? He ends up choking. And so I don't really see Josh Allen being in that discussion because he hasn't proven himself to be on the same caliber as Burrow and Mahomes. Obviously, I think he has the ability to. Like we said, he has the weapons to do it. I think he has all the talent in the world. He has extreme arm strength as well as he's really mobile. He's a big guy. So he could be on that same caliber, but we just haven't seen anything like that from him yet.
I think too, like it's just tough because the NFC really doesn't have any quarterbacks that are guys that have just been dominating, over the last few years. And so they're rising above everyone else. And they're like, people try to put Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts had one good season. He hasn't really signified himself yet. He's like one of the great QBs in the NFL, in my opinion. Dak clearly hasn't. Like you've got guy. I don't really think in the NFC, I can even think of one person who even like quarterback wise is just better than everyone else. The NFC is kind of a
Obviously,
toss up.
everyone's riding on the Jalen Hurts high just because he had one good season last year. And
Mm-hmm.
guess what? He got injured. So that means he's going to be injury prone this upcoming season. So, I mean, maybe he won't be as good as before. And then, like you said, Dak, he hasn't had a
Right.
good season in who knows how long. And then I can't really think of anyone else that would be seen as dominant in the NFC.
I think that's why there's obviously so many rivalries in the NFL, historic rivalries, divisional rivalries. Like, we're not even talking about that, but we're talking right now QB rivalries, like team rivalries based on how good their QBs are. There's really only the Chiefs and the Bengals. Everyone else is trying to get into that kind of conversation, but that's the truest. Like, you look at dominating rivalry, long lasting. I think that will be the one that we see here for the next few years, like you were saying. I can't think of anyone else. Obviously, the other rivalries, like I was talking about, what the QB in terms of QBs, that's who we're going to be seeing. Those are the two most dominating guys in the NFL right now, and people could come along, but right now that's who it is.
I mean, with it being, I think it's cool because it is truly the two best QBs
Mm-hmm.
in the NFL right now. So we've seen one edge the other, and then obviously the Mahomes was able to get Burrow back, but we get to see the two best quarterbacks in the NFL in the same conference. So I do think that this is going to be the best rivalry for
I
the next
think,
couple of years.
I mean, I think it's safe to say that for the next at least 5 years, it's safe to say that the road to the Super Bowl in the AFC will either be through Kansas City or Cincinnati, and most likely, most of the time, Kansas City. So, someone else could come in and snag it every once in a while, but those are the two teams that have their guy and will keep holding on to their guy and their teams for a while.
Well, I mean, even with that, I just think it's gonna come through Kansas City. I mean, even when the Bengals went to the Super Bowl that year,
Right.
you know, the Chiefs were the favorites, and so obviously the Bengals had to go to Arrowhead and beat Patrick Mahomes at home. So I do think the road is going to come through Kansas City, but I do think Cincinnati is going to possibly get them a few times, and I hope they
Hmm.
do because I think that'll increase tensions and that'll make it a lot more interesting to watch. Um, because if it's just one dogging on the other for years and years and years, it's not going to be as exciting. But we've
It's
already
kind of how it
seen
was with
a
Manning
ton
and
of back and
Brady.
forth. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. It was Brady was he had Manning's number for ever. I want to say Manning got him like a couple times here and there, but for the most part, it was
In the
Brady.
playoffs, it was always Brady.
Well, here's we like to end our shows on under review. I brought you a quote from the captain, Derek Jeter. I love it when people doubt me. It makes me work harder to prove them wrong. That's the truth.
Take that, use it as motivation this week. We appreciate y'all listening. We'll see you next week with another episode of Under Review.